When I first moved to this neighborhood with my husband, everything felt new and overwhelming. I didn't know a single soul. I had hoped we would meet our neighbors together, but my husband wasn't interested. He said, "You go, I'm busy." So I went alone, carrying a small basket of gifts to introduce myself. That's when I first met Sarah. She was warm, with kind eyes and a calm voice. We bumped into each other several times at the supermarket and nearby stores. Over time, we grew closer, often sharing tea at her cozy home. She would always smile and listen as I spoke about my new life, my dreams, and my pregnancy. One day, over tea, Sarah told me something surprising. "By the way, my husband is the CEO of the company where your husband works." I blinked, stunned. "I had no idea, but please," she said gently, "don't tell your husband. I don't want things to get complicated." I nodded. I respected her wish and kept it a secret, even though a tiny worry began to grow inside me. Meanwhile, my husband kept growing colder and more distant. He rarely smiled. He spoke harshly over small things. Sometimes I wondered if I had done something wrong, but deep down I knew it wasn't me. One terrible evening, after a small argument in the car, he forced me out on the side of the road and drove away. I stood there, pregnant, alone, and heartbroken. Tears blurred my vision as I struggled to call someone, anyone. Luckily, a kind stranger helped me to the hospital. I was shaken, but safe. While lying in the hospital bed, I thought of Sarah. Would she even care? Or would she quietly pretend nothing happened? The next day, everything changed. Sarah appeared at the hospital. Her face was serious, her hands gripping mine tightly. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'm here now." I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. Something much bigger was already in motion, and it would shake my world more than I could ever imagine. Sarah's visit to the hospital wasn't like anything I had expected. She wasn't just there to comfort me. She was there, with a plan. She sat down beside my bed, her face full of quiet anger, but her voice calm and careful. "I know what happened," she said, "and I know it's worse than you think." Blinked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Sarah hesitated, then leaned in closer. "I've been watching him," she said, "your husband, for weeks." My heart stopped. "Watching him?" I repeated, my voice small. She nodded slowly. "Ever since you first told me about his behavior, I got suspicious. I hired someone, a private investigator." My mouth dropped open in shock. Why would she do that? Why would she go that far? For me? Sarah squeezed my hand. "I didn't want to tell you before I was sure. But now, I have proof." "Proof? Proof of what?" Before I could ask more, a nurse came into the room. Sarah pulled back quickly, smiling like nothing had happened. After the nurse left, Sarah whispered, "Get your strength back. You'll need it. There are things you deserve to know. But not today." I could barely sleep that night. My mind raced with questions. What was my husband hiding? Why was Sarah so determined to help me? And most of all, could I trust her? The next morning, Sarah returned, but she wasn't alone. With her was a tall, serious-looking man in a gray suit. "This is Mr. Carter," Sarah said. "He's a lawyer. My family's lawyer." My heart pounded in my chest. A lawyer? Why would I need a lawyer? Mr. Carter gave me a kind smile. "Don't worry. I'm here to help you," he said gently. "You're not alone anymore." Sarah placed a file on the table beside my bed. Inside were photographs, documents, copies of emails, bank statements. I felt sick as I flipped through them. There were pictures of my husband meeting with another woman at restaurants, hotels. There were bank records showing large withdrawals, money he had hidden from me. There were even messages where he called me horrible names, laughed about getting rid of me. Tears filled my eyes. My whole world crumbled in a few pages. "Am I sorry you had to see this?" Sarah said softly. "But you needed to know the truth." I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, my throat too tight with pain. Sarah wasn't finished. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice lowering. "We're going to help you, but you must stay quiet. Act like you don't know anything. No arguments, no signs. You're still weak. And he's watching." I nodded again, trembling. Inside, a fire had started. Small, flickering, but growing stronger every second. I wasn't going to be his victim. Not anymore. And Sarah. She wasn't just a friend. She was something much more powerful. But why? Why was she doing all of this? I would find out soon enough, and when I did, everything would finally make sense. The days that followed were a strange kind of nightmare. Stayed in the hospital, recovering slowly, pretending that everything was fine, pretending I still loved him, pretending I didn't know. My husband visited almost every day, bringing flowers, smiling, telling the nurses how much he adored me. But behind his soft words, I saw it now, the lies, the guilt, the fear that maybe I knew more than I let on. Sarah warned me to play along, and I did. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. Every hug made my skin crawl. Every kiss on my forehead made me want to scream. But I smiled. I nodded. I thanked him for being such a good husband. All while the fire inside me grew hotter, stronger. One night, Sarah visited again, slipping into my room after hours. She closed the door carefully and turned to me, her eyes serious. "It's time," she said. I sat up straighter, my heart hammering. Time? For what? Sarah pulled out a small device, a hidden recorder. "You're going to get him talking," she said softly. "You'll make him admit everything." I froze. "I can't," I whispered. "He's too careful." Sarah smiled, a sharp, knowing smile. "Not if you push the right buttons." She sat beside me and explained the plan. Tomorrow, when he visited, I would act emotional, broken, desperate. I would tell him I needed to know the truth, that I forgave him for anything he had done, as long as he promised to stay. He wouldn't be able to resist. He thought I was weak. He thought he had won. And that, Sarah said, would be his downfall. The next afternoon, the hospital room felt like a stage. I wore no makeup. I let my hair hang loose. I looked as broken as I felt inside. When he walked in, holding a big bouquet of roses, I forced a shaky smile. "Hi," I whispered. He rushed to my side, overflowing with fake love, telling me how much he missed me. How he couldn't wait for me to come home. I let tears fall. Real ones. He thought they were for him. I choked out. "Can you just tell me the truth?" He stiffened. I grabbed his hand, squeezing it like I was terrified. And maybe I was. But not for the reasons he thought. "I don't care what it is," I said. "I'll forgive you. I just need to know. No secrets between us." He stared at me, calculating. I held my breath. Then he smiled. The cruelest smile I had ever seen. And slowly he began to talk. The recorder hidden in the nightstand caught every word. He confessed to everything. The affair. The money he had stolen. How he had planned to leave me the second I was out of the picture. how he had even thought about speeding things up, making sure I didn't recover. My blood ran cold, but I didn't stop him. I smiled through my tears. I nodded. I told him I understood. Inside, my heart was screaming. When he finally kissed my forehead and left, promising to bring my favorite dinner tomorrow, I collapsed onto the bed, shaking. Sarah slipped into the room minutes later. She had heard everything through a small earpiece. "You did it," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're free now." But deep inside, I knew it wasn't over yet. Not even close. Because what Sarah hadn't told me was this. She had a secret too, and it would change everything. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice again. Laughing. Confessing. Admitting he would have let me die. The only thing that kept me from falling apart was Sarah's hand in mine, steady and strong. But just before sunrise, as the hospital room lay dark and silent, Sarah leaned closer and whispered, "There's something else you need to know." My stomach twisted. I turned to her, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. "I didn't just find out about the affair last week," she said slowly. "I've known for months." I froze. "What?" I breathed. Sarah looked pained, as if every word hurt to say. "I wanted to tell you," she said. I tried. "But you were so happy. You had just gotten the promotion. You were planning your dream vacation. I couldn't destroy that for you. I felt like the ground shifted under me. You let me live a lie," whispered. Sarah shook her head quickly. "No, I tried to find proof first. I didn't want to just accuse him without something solid. But by the time I got real evidence..." She paused. "You were already sick." I stared at her, my heart pounding louder with every second. "You think he made me sick?" I said. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Tears burned my eyes. All this time, the man who held my hand in the hospital, the man who promised to love me in sickness and in health, he might have caused the sickness, and Sarah had known. I turned my face away, staring at the dark window. I felt anger, grief, betrayal. But most of all, I felt something else. Something cold and sharp building inside me. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to ask why this happened to me. No, I was going to finish what we started. I was going to make sure he paid. Later that morning, Sarah laid out the next steps carefully, like a general planning a battle. "We have his confession," she said. "But it's not enough." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer. "We need proof he stole your money. Proof he transferred it to someone else." I remembered the way he had smiled when he thought he had won. I remembered how confident he was, how sure that I would never find out. "How?" I asked. Sarah smiled. "You're going to ask him for help." The plan was crazy, dangerous, but it was our only shot. The next time he visited, I would tell him I needed him to move some money around for me. Say I was too weak to handle it myself. Beg him to protect me just like he always promised. And he would do it. Thinking it was part of the prize he had won. He would leave a trail. A trail we could follow straight to his hidden accounts. Once we had that. Once we had everything, he wouldn't be able to talk his way out. Not to the police, not to a judge, not even to the world. That afternoon, when he walked into my hospital room with another perfect smile, I played my part. I clung to him. I cried into his shoulder. I told him how scared I was about the future. I begged him to help me move my savings into a safe account. I watched his eyes light up. He thought he was winning again. Good. Let him think it, because very soon the ground beneath him would crack wide open, and he would have no idea until it was far too late. The next few days felt like I was living in a dream. Every moment I rehearsed my lines, every word I would say when I asked him for help, every move I would make to make sure I stayed one step ahead. But the hardest part wasn't the plan itself. It was the waiting. The waiting made my heart race. It made my mind scream for answers. Would he fall for it? Would I finally have the chance to make him pay? The morning of our meeting arrived. I was ready, but nothing could have prepared me for how easy it was to act like everything was fine. When he walked in with that smug grin of his, I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap him, but I held it in. I had a job to do. "Lisa, you look better today," he said, sitting next to my bed. His eyes were searching me, as if he still didn't quite know what was going on. I smiled weakly, as I always did when he was near. "Thank you," I said, my voice trembling just enough to keep him from suspecting anything. "Listen, I need your help." He leaned forward, his attention now entirely on me. "What is it?" He sounded so calm, so sure that he had me under control. It made my stomach turn. "I need you to move some money for me," I said, making my voice sound as fragile as I could manage. "I'm too weak to handle it right now. Can you do that for me?" His eyes gleamed. He was hooked. He thought he had me cornered. He thought he had won. "Of course, I'll take care of it," he said without hesitation. "I'll make sure it's all safe." I hid my smile behind my hands. The trap was set. For the next few hours, I played my role perfectly. I pretended to be helpless. I let him believe he had control. I watched him make the transfer, never once suspecting that every move he made was being carefully tracked. Every password, every security question, every transfer. It was all mine. And when the time came, I handed over everything to Sarah. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with a knowing glance. "You've done it," she said. "It's all there." I couldn't help but feel a rush of power, the feeling of having control, when he thought he had won. It was like a sweet taste of revenge. But as the hours passed, the excitement faded. I couldn't help but feel a weight growing in my chest. I hadn't won yet, not completely. The next step was going to be harder. Exposing him, taking everything he thought he had. And there was no turning back. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The phone in my hand felt heavy. I knew what I had to do next. I had to send the final message, and when I did, there would be no turning back. I tapped the screen and dialed Sarah's number. "Are you ready?" she asked when she picked up. I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said. "It's time." The next day, Sarah went public. She released everything. Every detail, every account number, every password. It was all over the news. My husband's dirty little secret was exposed for the world to see. The company couldn't deny it. The lies couldn't be hidden, and he couldn't escape. It was over. But even as the dust began to settle, I felt a strange emptiness. What had I really accomplished? Had I avenged myself? Had I gotten justice? It didn't matter now. The only thing that mattered was my future, and my future was finally mine. The days after Sarah's big reveal were filled with chaos, and yet there was a strange peace in it. I had no more control over what was happening. It was out of my hands now. But even in the midst of this whirlwind, one thought continued to linger. What now? I hadn't expected the response to be so intense. The social media backlash, the endless calls from the press, the accusations from his family. But even that couldn't touch me. In the weeks that followed, his life unraveled in ways I hadn't imagined. The company he worked for had no choice but to fire him after the scandal became public. His reputation was in tatters. The job offers he once had lined up evaporated. And most satisfying of all, his family had begun to distance themselves. He tried to save face, of course. He tried to reach out to me, to beg for my forgiveness. But I ignored him. I had made up my mind. But as time passed, I started to wonder, had I made the right decision? Part of me felt vindicated, but another part of me felt empty. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, I couldn't ignore the nagging thought that perhaps, deep down, I was seeking something more than just revenge. Maybe I was looking for closure. I had lived for so long in a state of uncertainty, wondering if I had made the right choices. I had given up so much of myself to him. I had sacrificed my own happiness just to keep the peace. Now that the peace was shattered, what did I have left? I found myself talking to Sarah more and more, as though seeking answers to questions I didn't even know how to ask. She was always there for me, providing words of encouragement, reminding me that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. But that didn't change the fact that I was exhausted. One evening, after a particularly long day of phone calls and paperwork, I sat alone in my apartment, my mind racing. The silence was deafening. Then the phone rang. I picked it up, and my heart skipped a beat. It was him, David. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Lisa. His voice came through, sounding different. I need to see you. Please. I felt a chill run down my spine. What did he want now? What for? I asked, keeping my voice steady. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I want to make things right. Please just hear me out. I sat back, staring at the screen. I had never expected him to come crawling back like this. After everything that had happened, why now? I closed my eyes, weighing my options. Should I meet him? Could I finally put all of this behind me? Or would seeing him again only open old wounds? There was a long silence on the other end of the line before he spoke again, his voice softer now. I'm sorry. I know I can't undo what I've done. But I want to try. I can't lose you, Lisa. I need you to understand. I felt a wave of anger surge inside me. How could he still act like nothing had happened? How could he sit there pretending to be the victim? You don't get it, David, I said, my voice rising. You don't get to just come back and make everything okay. You ruined everything. And now you're asking for forgiveness? I hung up before he could respond. It was over. The story was finally ending. I was done. But as the night wore on and the weight of the phone call settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last I'd hear from him. He was desperate. He was dangerous. And I had a feeling he wasn't going to let go without a fight. Days passed after the phone call, and yet David's words echoed in my mind. I need you to understand. But how could I? How could I ever understand the depths of his betrayal? I had given him my trust, my loyalty, my heart, and he had thrown it all away. But now he was back, and I had to deal with the consequences. I kept myself busy, focusing on the things that mattered. My baby, my health, my future. But as much as I tried to push him out of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something big. And then I received the letter. It came one afternoon, a thick envelope sealed with my ex-husband's name. I had no idea what it was, but I already knew it wasn't good. I opened it slowly, reading the contents carefully. The letter was from his lawyer. He was suing me. for custody of our child, for the divorce settlement, for everything. He claimed he had been wronged in the marriage and that I had taken everything from him. I felt a surge of disbelief. Was he serious? After everything he had done, after everything he had put me through, he was still trying to make himself the victim? I sat down, stunned, the letter trembling in my hands. But this time, I wasn't going to let him win. Not again. I called my lawyer immediately, explaining the situation. He assured me that this was just another attempt to manipulate me, another tactic to try and regain control. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that crept into my chest. The divorce was supposed to be over. This was supposed to be done. But now it was starting all over again. The next few days were a blur. I fought back with everything I had, gathering evidence, preparing my case. But every time I thought we were getting closer to the end, something new would come up. It was exhausting, emotionally, physically, mentally. But I couldn't give up. As the court date approached, I couldn't help but wonder, what if he had a point? What if everything had gone wrong because of me? What if, in the end, I was the one who was selfish? But then I thought about my baby, and I remembered all the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I had made the right choice. And I realized, no matter what happened, I had to protect my child. I had to stand my ground. The day of the court hearing arrived. I walked into the courtroom, my heart pounding in my chest. David was there, sitting with his lawyer, looking more confident than ever. But I knew that this time, he wasn't going to win. The hearing was tense. Each side presented their case, but I felt something shift in the air. I felt like I was being heard for the first time in years. Finally, it was my turn to speak. I stood up, my voice shaking but steady. And I told the court everything. I told them about the abuse, the lies, the manipulation. I didn't hold back. I spoke with the strength I didn't know I had. When it was over, I was exhausted, but I knew I had done the right thing. And then, the judge delivered the verdict. In my favor. I couldn't believe it. It was over. David lost the case. He lost the custody battle. And he lost everything. He tried to appeal, of course, but it was too late. His actions had caught up with him, and just like that, I was free. It was a bittersweet victory. I had won, but I had lost so much along the way. As the days passed, I focused on what truly mattered. My baby, my family, my future. I thought of Sarah, of how she had been there for me when I needed her the most. She had shown me what it meant to truly be a friend, and I would never forget that. In the end, life had a funny way of working itself out. Things didn't go the way I planned, but I had emerged stronger, more confident, and in the end, that was all that mattered.